So, on Table Talk today, we have Remo Fernandes. He needs no introduction, musician, singer par excellence. And what a journey it's been for you, Remo. You've been out with your autobiography. But when we speak of journeys, I just want to say, there's a lot that we take for granted when we speak about a journey. We think of going seamlessly from one thing to another. But
Yes.
Remo
Yeah.
is going to, tell us what it's actually like to live that journey, Remo. Ramo, firstly, thanks so much for taking the time out, like I said.
Not at
Um,
all. The pleasure is all mine, Jyotsna. The
you
pleasure is
know,
really.
your autobiography, you've taken some time writing it, haven't you?
Yes, but it just flew. I took some time in the beginning. I wrote about 3 or 4 chapters. Then I kept it aside because at that time I was really busy, traveling for concerts, recordings, and I thought I would carry it on after a few weeks. And before I knew it, 9 years I think went by. And
So
then
never
finally,
say never and never give up.
yes. And then the pandemic hit, and I told myself that was the perfect time to sit at home and write. And I resumed work on it, and this time I vowed I wouldn't stop until I completed it, and that's what I did.
So was it like a catharsis? Was it just relief that you had it all out? What was the feeling when you finally finished and submitted the manuscript?
Uh, I think I would like to speak more about starting it, because starting it was such a journey back into my childhood. It was so satisfying, fulfilling, revealing to me that I could still uh, call up such memories and remember such things as simple as that. It was, and to relive your childhood, I think is such a beautiful thing, to relive it in detail. Such a beautiful thing. And luckily, I had my mother's photographs, the uh, all the photographs that my mother preserved so carefully all these tens of years. So I could fall back on them, and
I think
it
there's
was
something precious about small town upbringing, isn't there?
absolutely, you can't compare it to growing up in a big city. That they're two totally different things.
Yeah, I'm from a small town in Punjab as well. So
Oh, you
I
are.
yes, I am actually. I'm from Jalandhar in Punjab, and
Oh,
it's like sometimes you feel like, oh my God, have I matured that I would like to go back to that life? You take a circle in life, don't you?
yeah, absolutely.
So
Yes.
so was that so Goa? Your book is also like an ode to Goa, isn't it?
Yes, it is exactly.
Now, when you go back, you're based out of Portugal most of the time. When you go back,
I
how
wouldn't say most of the time, like about half the time.
half the time?
In fact, now I've restarted spending a little more time in Goa than in Portugal. In the
That's
beginning, I was
lovely.
spending a little more of the year in Portugal than in Goa.
So what do you think of Goa now?
It's no longer what it used to be.
Mm,
It's just because it's home to me, and I love my house.
yeah.
The house where I live in the village. It's a lovely old Goan home with a huge garden at the back, a medium garden in the front, and an open courtyard in the middle. So you don't feel cooped up. When you're there, you don't feel cooped up. You can spend days without leaving your front gate, and you still don't feel cooped up. It's one of those, and the feeling is fantastic there. It's also been in the family for generations and generations, and I'm sure that the house has imbibed all the DNA which is in me. It's a nice feeling. It's a great feeling being there.
No, I hear you. I think I've got the same background in a sense, far away, another part of the country, but it's pretty much the same. So, do you
Yes.
think this was basically for you when you speak about Goa? This was something that you had to write, because it's so much inside you. And this, I think the best way to actually take something out is to write it and put it out there.
Exactly. Exactly. And another thing is that I had read a lot of books about Goa and about the Goa of the olden days, written by Goans who had not lived in Goa at that time, who were living outside Goa in Bombay, in Calcutta, in Delhi, in Bangalore. Uh, and who in fact ignored and even denied their Goan roots, to the point of changing their Goan surnames, anglicizing them a bit, and nobody really wanted to be told he was a Goan.
Oh, wow.
Just to tell you about this, just to illustrate this complex that Goans have had about Goa. Goans, I think, were the only people in the whole of India who, when they met together, if they were educated to know English, for example, they would speak in English when they met together. They would not speak in Konkani. They would definitely not speak in Konkani. Whereas if two Punjabis meet, if two people from Kerala meet, if two people from any, Gujaratis meet, they'll immediately break into their mother tongue. But not two Goans. It's strange. But later, when Goa became famous and fashionable as a tourist destination, and the rest of India and the whole world discovered Goa, then these same Goans came back to Goa and kind of claimed Goa and claimed their roots in Goa. And they presumed to write about a Goa which they had not lived in. But it's not because of them, but I knew that I had lived a life in Goa and I had experienced a Goa that I could not find in any other book. Uh, and so I just felt like writing about that, about my childhood in Panjim. There is one book. There is one book written by a gentleman called Lambert Mascarenhas who died very recently at the age of 100 of 100 plus. He was editor of Goa Today. He is a writer, a wonderful man, and he wrote about his childhood. But that was in a village in Goa, beautifully described a village in those days. And I grew up in the city in Panjim, which is not at all like a city is today or like Panjim is today. It was a beautiful, perfect little doll town at that time, and I just had to
So,
write.
so was it, given what you say, was it problematic to find a connect there with your music, even though it's your home?
Uh, Music was all around me, so there was no problem connecting to music. What might have been a problem is making a successful career out of it. And when I say successful, I mean fame and fortune. You know, uh, Music was all around everywhere in Goa at that time, especially. People just played live at parties. There were no stereos and there was no recorded music. Everybody played or at least sang. So at every party, there would be people taking out the guitars, the violins, the mandolins, somebody sitting at the piano. Everybody would be singing.
This is really what, when we imagine the old world charm, this is pretty much it.
Yeah, and I was lucky to have experienced a bit of it before it started to fade out. It stayed on for a long time, actually. And there are still families from whose houses you can hear instruments being played and voices singing at parties and at get-togethers and even otherwise. It's still there in some families.
So given that, you've been through that stage of music to where we are today, the whole digital concept, was it difficult for you to adjust?
No, not at all. On the contrary, I think the digital revolution helped musicians like me a lot, because before you could compose all these songs in your mind, in your head, but in order to record them, you needed the backing of a record company because only they would sponsor a recording studio where you could go and then you had to and then they had to hire out musicians to play with you, a drummer, a bassist, and this and that. And then, thanks to multi-track recording, I could sit at home, and luckily, I'm a multi-instrumentalist too. So I could sit at home and I could see my songs being layered with all these instruments which I imagined in my mind, with all the harmonies, the different voices. So the digital revolution was a blessing, in fact, an absolute blessing. Now, there's a
This
difference between using the digital computer in order to record many tracks of live music and of live instruments, and there's a difference in making something like techno music, where you don't
of course.
record anything, you don't really play anything. There are ready-made drum loops, there are ready-made bass loops and synthesizer loops, ready-made, and you just put them together and you make a song, a piece of music.
But is there
Doesn't
some regret that this revolution, so to speak, could have come a little bit earlier, would have helped spread your music even more to other parts of the country or the world?
Mm, I don't know if there's a regret. I wouldn't say so. No, no regret. See, if that's what I was interested in, the first thing I would have done is to shift to Bombay from Goa. If all I was interested in was a divulgation of my music and the the growth of my career, first thing I would have done is to shift to Bombay because that's the showbiz capital of India. I didn't even bother doing that. I just stayed in Goa. And not only did I stay in Goa, but I shifted from Panjim, the city, to the village of Surim, where the electricity was nothing to talk about. I had to do all my first recordings with the help of a generator, and there were no telephones. So the first concerts, the first recording contract, that I obtained was uh, done through fax, which somebody had to carry for me every day to Pancham and send the fax and come back with all the faxes which were received in that telecommunication center. So no regrets. No, I just loved the life that I lived and the way it happened.
Which is how it should be.
Yeah.
Bollywood, you're talking about music, and of course, you dipped in and out of Bollywood, and I think a lot of people would still not know that you were the one who sang Hamma Hamma, and all the remixes that are coming up and stuff like that. But what was that journey like? What was that phase like for you?
It was like a visit to another planet. You know, of course, I knew that Bollywood existed and its power and the money and everything behind it, but it wasn't something which attracted me because and I'm not turning my nose up at it or something, but my my main aim in making music was to write my own songs, to compose my own songs, which were based upon my own personal experiences, the people I met, and the situations I was in, the things I read about life, about the world situations, whatever. Whereas in Bollywood, you sing uh, or you compose. Even if you compose what the film director tells you he needs. What the actor feels for the actress at that moment, what the heroine feels for the hero, and so on and so forth. It's never something which is coming out of you. So although I enjoy doing that as well, that's it just remains as an as well. Whereas my main body of work has always been my own songs.
So, is that
About
something that you may consider doing again in the future?
Yes, once in a while, if a song comes to me, if a film director comes to me and says he would like me to compose music for his film, sure, I would be happy to do that.
Remo, is the life of a musician, even if the musician is in a band and you were in a band at some point, and that's a tragic part of the book that you mentioned, is the life of a musician generally lonely?
I don't think it's any more lonely than any other life. It depends on how you live it and what you make of it. I'm a lone person in the creation of music, as in there are musicians who create music jointly. The most famous ones, perhaps, being Paul McCartney and John Lennon. They always composed their songs jointly. They visited each other as teenagers and they sat in each other's living rooms and with their guitars and went at it for hours, composing all those masterpieces. Uh, and there are people who compose on their own. I'm one of the latter. I can't well, I never have composed with somebody else. So that part of it is is a solitary trip. I wouldn't call it lonely. It's lovely because you're not alone. You're with the music. You're with the music that you're composing. You're with the thoughts that are giving you the lyrics. Uh, whether you're singing, you're making up a song for Bombay, which is called Bombay City, or you're writing about O Meri Munni, which is experiences which you lived through with 13-year-olds and 12-year-old girls at the beginning of the sexual revolution in India, expressing the activity of their hormones, let's say. and feeling sad that it came at a dangerous time for them, because there was AIDS already in the air. And so I felt like writing a song about that. And so at that creative moment, I think it's nice to be alone. Like I said, but I'm never lonely at that time. I'm never lonely. I have to be alone, of course, with the music, with my thoughts. I guess everybody is that way. Even an author has to be alone. Even a painter has to be alone to really paint, to start the painting. And
Yeah, I think it's about the creative field per se. I think
yeah,
anybody who's in a creative environment
yeah,
dabbles in and out again from this
yeah.
environment, meet the folks and go back into the hibernating phase. But you've been
The
fairly
lovely,
candid. Sorry, please go
no,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
No,
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 the
I was
lovely thing with music I was saying is that after that phase of being alone and creating it, then you can go out and perform it for
yes.
1,000, 2,000, 10,000, 20,000 people at a concert. So there's both. So there's
So
both.
do you do that in Portugal? Are you
No,
performing?
no.
No.
Portugal, I have not followed up my music life at all. Here, I'm just an unknown.
Oh,
Um,
really?
I just have my recording studio in the house where I'm sitting right now. It's in a huge mess because I just came back from Goa, and yeah, I enjoy I enjoy living here, and I've been through it. Been that done that kind of, and I don't feel like restarting, uh, trying to make myself known in a country where nobody knows me. So I just enjoy being a totally unknown, normal citizen in a country and in a continent where you don't have to be a famous citizen in order to be treated like you should be. With respect, with the government doing things for you, whether you're in a government office or whether you are anywhere. One doesn't have to use influence and pull strings at every
Things
stage
are
of
easier. Yes.
life.
Yeah.
I
Things
enjoy it.
things work.
Yeah, things work. Things work.
You've been fairly candid about your relationships in your book as well, Remo. Uh,
Yes.
what did you expect? What kind of a reaction did you expect to that, or it was more about just unburdening yourself when you were writing that,
It was not about unburdening. Of course not. I wouldn't call it unburdening
or
at
perhaps
all.
that's a harsh word. Yeah.
Yes. And it's about, I think the discovery of sex, of romance, as you grow up is a very, very important part of one's life. Very important part of one's life. So I can't understand how we can write about our lives and ignore it completely when it's such an important and a powerful force. It just seemed incomplete, to write about my life without writing about my relationships, attractions, the first, especially the first attractions, towards the opposite sex and the desires and what went on in my mind as a young boy, as a teenager, and stuff like that. I think that's a very important part of everybody's life.
And I think a lot of people
But of
will,
course, when you write about those things, you can't just decide to be honest. I'm going to be very honest and I'm going to write everything about it. No, you have to remember that what you're writing involves somebody else. So you have to respect that person's privacy. And
so did
so
you
I
hold
wrote,
back at some point?
did I hold back?
Yeah.
Uh, well, like I wrote somewhere in the book, I only wrote about 1/10 maybe of my relationships. Uh, Not because they were necessarily more meaningful or I didn't go by that order. But some of them I did not write about at all, maybe because they are now married and it would be too easy for some people to identify them, the people who knew to identify them, and I didn't want to create any troubles, because you do have responsibilities towards others as well. It's not just about you wanting to portray yourself as a very honest person, honest writer. So yes, I did hold back in the sense that I don't have to tell everything, right? So I
No, you
just
don't.
told what, yeah. So I told what was important to me. To most of the girls, I actually sent the passages and asked for their permission to write. and they willingly gave it. One, I also asked them if I could use their name, and one of them said, "No, please don't use my name." So I changed that name, and in fact, I had not used most of the girls. I did not use the names of, but there was this girl who was from France, so I thought that she would be more cool about these things. And I asked her whether it was all right if I used her name, and she requested me not to. And of course, I changed it. So little things like that, but the name doesn't really matter. The important thing is there.
Yeah, of course. And I think a lot of young people out there will probably get inspired, if they read through your book to understand that what they go through is not alone. And,
Yes,
it's okay
I
to
guess.
it's okay to speak about these issues.
Yeah,
I completely agree with you. Was there any
thank you.
part of the book when you were writing it, that kind of triggered you, really got you upset? You had to stop writing.
I did not stop writing, but when I started writing about the accident, that my band faced, I think it was a few days that I took to write those two chapters. There was a palpable change in me. I was depressed again, and I went back into that state of mind for a while, and for a few days. And people who met me could see that change in me. It was because living through that all those years ago in the year 2000 was horrible. So 20 years later, when I wrote about it, it did take me back there. So that was, I think, the toughest thing to write about. My mother's death, my father's death, all those things are not really, they're sad, but they're not difficult to write about, because everybody has to go at the age when you have to go. But four guys going in the prime of their lives, and that too violently in a road accident, and the aftermath, some of the families needing to blame someone. It's like what happened with KK's death. People need to. There are some people who need to blame someone. They just have to blame someone. The authorities of the auditorium who let in too many people, the air conditioning that wasn't working. But they forget that he was a heart patient. The doctors have said that he had a condition which he neglected. You don't neglect such things. You can't neglect such things. But it's human
Yes,
nature, I guess. It's
yes,
not
it
only
is.
in India, everywhere in the world, there are people who need to blame someone or something. If it's someone, all the better.
Actually very unfortunate, but yes, it is the way of the world. It really is,
Yeah.
though. Music though is considered, to be so full of adrenaline, and there's all the stuff that goes around it, general image. How do you actually inspire a generation coming forward that is looking to get into music by showing them that there's more to music than just hunting for those records or just hunting for getting your name out there on Spotify? How do you tell them to just make music today?
I can't really tell them, it's got to come from within. If they ask me, and there are quite a few who ask me, who write in, who send me their songs. To them, I tell them that the first thing is, do it for yourself. Do it for yourself, not for somebody else. That's the wrong thing to do. And don't ask for my opinion on your song. Don't ask for anybody's opinion on your song. The song has got to please you. Your music has to please you. If it doesn't please you, it's not going to please anybody else. You show them to 10 people, and 10 people are going to tell you, oh, it's lovely, but the verse could be like this. And the second person is going to tell you, it's lovely, but the chorus could be like that. The third person is going to tell you, the beat instead of that should be reggae. The fourth person is going to tell you, instead of violins, put in flutes. Who are you going to listen to? All 10? Then you end up with a song that you hate, you know. So I try to tell them that the first person who's going to be pleased with your music is yourself. And and sometimes it's youth who is unfortunately not really talented musically, who sends me demos and asks me what I think of the song. Because music has got glamour attached to it.
Yes.
So a lot of youth have this dream. I want to be not just a musician, I want to be a rock star, you know. And sports. music, sports, they have that aura attached to them. Nobody dreams, I want to be a bank manager. I want to be a scientist. That comes if you are really science inclined towards science and inclined towards accounts and economics. You may want to be a bank manager or an economist, but music, sports, acting, they attract the youth. They lure the youth for the wrong reasons. So I tell them, first of all, find out whether you're really talented, you know, or if it's the lure of the glamour that's making you want to be a musician. And that, of
I,
course, I mean, for that they have to be brutal with themselves, brutally honest with themselves. Then I leave it up to them.
which I find this generation actually lacks, but that's a story, that's a side story. And social media has also changed things, right? Because I think a lot of people now think that they can just get on social media, upload a song, and it's a quick way to fame.
Exactly. Well, but there are so many songs that just uploading a song doesn't really get you anywhere. It's only if the song goes viral or at least becomes very, very popular that it can get you somewhere. Even the social media is now over flooded with songs and
Yeah. It's a
blogs.
fish in a big ocean, absolutely,
Yeah.
I think. So, Remo, what next for you? Are you, you know, what do you think you want to aim for next, or you are now just taking it as it comes, and this is the phase. We all go through phases.
Because, I had these two things which for years were the two things I want to do in my life. I want to complete in my life. One was a piece of music that I started writing about Mother Teresa when I first met her in Calcutta. I wanted to record an album of songs which were about her. I had already written 3 or 4 songs. This was 27, now 30 years ago, and I thought I would, in the rest of the album, I thought I would put some instrumentals, um, mood instrumentals, and give them abstract names such as love, faith, those kind of things, and fill up the album with that, as well as these 3 or 4 songs. And the other thing which I had started, like I told you, 9 years before I completed, was the autobiography. So these were the two
Yeah.
projects which I wanted to complete in my life. I have completed both. So now, to answer your question, I'm not really looking forward to any other project.
Is
I've done these.
traveling, do you still have the travel bug that you used to have?
Oh yes, that I love to do. So, and I love performing. I love performing. I'll never stop composing songs, recording songs in my studio. And while I was writing the book, I wrote about 10 songs and recorded 10 songs as well, together with in that 1 year that I wrote the book. That I can't stop. It just comes. Whenever the feeling comes, it comes, and you can't do anything about it. An idea for a song. So I'll always keep doing that until I'm unable to. And but there's nothing like a project which I want to do, like a certain album which I want to complete. Like I wanted to do the Mother Teresa album, which ended up as an opera, by the way. There were 4 songs I told you, but it ended up as 28 tracks. 28 tracks. It just ended up as a life story finally.
Wow.
Once I started re-recording it, 27 years later. After the first song, it went into the another song which I had not written 27 years earlier, and then into a third song and fourth song. Every every day I finished. I mean, every time I completed a song, the very next morning I had an idea for the next song, and it went in a linear fashion, like recounting her
Yeah,
whole life story and work story and everything. And it ended up as an opera.
fascinating.
And soon after that, the pandemic struck. I'd completed this project number one, and I went to go on a holiday. Needed a break. Went to go on a holiday, and the pandemic struck, and I said, "Hey, that's a good time to work on my project number two." And I started writing it. So now, that's it. I've completed both. So now
Very
I just want.
productive. Very
Yes,
productive 2 years, Remo.
yes, it was. It was. They were, and now onwards, I just want to do things I love doing anyway. And these are the kind of things I love doing. In any case, making music.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll write. Maybe travel, watch movies, read books. The
Do you
pleasures of
perform
life.
in Goa when you were in Goa? Do
Yes,
you do?
yes, yes.
I
In
hope to
Goa,
catch you there sometime.
oh, yes, I hope so. I hope so. I just did a concert in the village I'm from. I've been living in that village for the last 25 years. Because from the city, I finally moved back to
Okay.
our, our ancestral village.
I was there 2 weeks ago, I think. Yeah,
Oh,
two
yeah.
weeks ago. So, but
Yes.
next time, maybe. Next time
Yes.
I'll catch it. But before I let you go, this is just because I want to ask you, your jingle, and I think everybody's asked you this. Yeah, he had right choice, baby. How
Oh,
did that come about? That was such a fascinating time for such a fascinating jingle. I mean, I look at the quality of stuff now and I'm not so sure it's the same.
yes, it was very live. It was very real in the sense that nowadays Pepsi, for example, they do ads with Bollywood actors, and
Yes.
they don't sing, they don't play, they don't compose their own music. They just mime the song with somebody else. So it's not true. It's not true. Whereas Pepsi was famous for using the pop stars or the rock stars in each country, not only in India. I mean, starting with Michael Jackson in America. So every country that they launched in, whether it was China, whether Hong Kong, or Africa, or wherever, they used to. And at that time, there were no awards. There was no recognition for pop and rock in India. The authorities and awards people pretended they didn't even exist really. Only Bollywood existed, and our ancient classical and folk music, of course. So when Pepsi approached me to do that jingle, I really took it very rightly or wrongly, like an award, like a recognition, not from our own authorities, but from Pepsi America, that I was the number one pop and rock musician in India. So I looked at it that way, and they wanted me to do a Michael Jackson song, the same song that Michael Jackson had done in the Pepsi ad. They wanted me to do it in Hindi, and I said no. I would like to compose my own, and they were very skeptical. What can an Indian? How good a song can an Indian compose? And I said, let me try, and I'll show you. So I composed, yeah, he right, that jingle, the one you just spoke
Yeah,
about, and I
yeah.
sent it to them.
Can you sing it along?
I don't remember it, in full, but yeah, he had right choice, baby. Uh-huh.
That's
Something like that, remember. Uh, and they loved it, and they okayed it. So that was another kind of recognition, from the big cats out there in America, that my song was good enough. Like I said, at the time there was no recognition in India. That was a welcome recognition.
I think a lot of singers today have you to thank for paving the way in a sense, for the kind of the hard work that you've actually done for a lot of them to who are pretty much enjoying the fruits now. But it's been fabulous speaking with you, Remo. Your book is a revelation in itself, and I hope more and more people go out and buy it. But I think there's a lot of music still left in you. I heard that one line and I can vouch for it. So we hope to hear
Thank you so
lots
much.
more from you, and it was really my pleasure to speak with you, and wishing you all the best, and thank you for taking out the time.
The pleasure is all mine, Jyotsna. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure speaking to you too.
Thank you, Remo. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.